So you've probably watched tons of color grading tutorials before this one, but something still feels off. You've learned how to get a proper node tree going or how to grade within Premiere, but there's still something that's holding you back from creating that high quality cinematic image. If you want your footage to look more film ready or commercial ready, stick around because these tricks may just change the way you grade forever. Trick number 1, understanding psychology. Now, if you've studied color theory before or you've delved deep into color grading, you've probably already heard these terms and these different theories, but hear me out. It's always good to go back to the foundation. The psychology of your color grade means so much more than the look. Most of the movies I've ever watched, the ones that I actually enjoyed that are like top 10, are because I remember the story. The colors they used were to the point of aiding the storyline. So I'm gonna lay these out as quick as possible. I'll leave a AI prompt in the description for you to try. But very quickly, red is the most eye-catching color. That's why every big name brand uses red. Red is invoking intense emotions like anger, love, violence. It also is a good signal for bad guy, enemy. It's usually red is used in a bad sense, but it can also be used with good, intense emotions. Blue, you have loyalty, trust, faithfulness, but then you also have sadness and cold, like cold environments. Orange, you have warmth, you have friendliness, but you also have dryness and heat. That's why Blade Runner, that scene that everyone knows where it's just plain orange everywhere, it's because the team of Blade Runner wants you to feel that he is in a dry, dirty environment. That's why you have that orange look. Green, we have nature, we have organic elements, but then we also start leaning into sickness, eeriness. Green. It's probably my favorite color to use, but also your easiest way to give your viewer a gross feeling. But I like green a lot. Now there are more colors that you can go ahead and look up because there are tons of colors out there. Use that prompt in the description. If you don't want to use that prompt, just go look it up on the internet. If you have not started working with AI yet, just go into Google and look up color theory because that is going to completely change the way you color grade. When you start color grading intentionally, rather than saying, oh, blue looks good right here, you can say, no, this is a warm, happy feeling. We're gonna make it orange, and I can give aspects of blue for some contrast, which we'll go over later, but you can use colors towards the psychology of what you want your viewers to feel. Most of these tricks you're gonna see, they're easily done in pre-production. I'll give you some post-production methods for if you have a video right now that you're trying to edit, and I say, well, it's all done in pre-production. And you're like, well, that doesn't help me. So I will give you the best way to do it, and then the fix it and post way to do it. For psychology, have your set design and your costume design all representing the colors that you want. I'm trying to give a trustworthy feeling so you can trust me, hence all the blue, with little aspects of warmth and friendliness. So now you trust me and we're friends, all because I have blue and orange. So if you could pay attention to it with your lights and your set design, your costume design, your location, that's going to help you a ton and make the color grading process even easier because you already have the colors that are popping. The grade is just to enhance that, not to attempt to make colors that aren't there. Another technique to being able to pull off a warm or a cold tone is you can change your white balance in camera before you ever shoot. How you can do this in post-production is you can use log wheels. This shot right here is probably one of my favorite shots that I have gotten from most of the productions that I've done, and this is actually the easiest. This was in my parents' backyard, basically. But what I was able to do, this was shot a little bit later in the day, but 5600 Kelvin. This was actually all done afterwards. So this was shot 5600 Kelvin. It was a little bit later in the day, so it was maybe a little warmer than daylight. But what I did is when I went into the color grade in DaVinci, and I took my white balance and made it orange, brought up the warmth a ton, and now it gave it this warm, dry, desolate feeling. Another way you can do this is on the opposite end of the scale. So here is an example image of a shoot where it was daylight. It was during the day. And all I did was change my white balance to make it look a lot more blue, more cold. And the idea is, one, I wanted to use it creatively to make it look like night, because nighttime naturally has more cooler tones to it. While also, this part of the music video that we were filming was more of a sad tone. So making it blue made it sad. And then we're gonna come back to this image, because if you see that orange dot right there, there was a reason I had that. So the idea of using psychology when making the decisions for your color is going to enhance your color grading by giving reason behind the colors you're using, enhancing the storyline or helping make the storyline more digestible. And that leads me into the next trick, which is use invisible colors. This is a weird one, isn't it? Well, invisible colors, if you have not heard this yet, I'm glad you're hearing it now. The whole point of editing and color grading is to be invisible. If somebody watches your video and they go, wow, the editing in that, unless it's some like filmmaker who's doing this all the time and they like to try to focus on the aspects of a film rather than falling into the story. On average, if you have the average person going, wow, that was a cool edit, probably was very talented, but I don't think it served the job properly. The whole point of an editor is to bring life to the footage. If you have somebody say that the video or the film, they notice the actors, the talent, they notice the storyline, you did your job. If people notice the edit didn't support the story, the edit supported itself and was trying to show off almost. Now again, for music videos and stuff, that's different. People just want to have the where everything's just crazy, everything. But most of what I've learned is when people watch a video or a film and they say that was a good storyline, the talent was amazing, wow, the makeup on that person looked really good, that's when you win. As an editor, you're not supposed to shine, which sucks because it's like, I'm a great editor. Cool. Editors are supposed to be the one who are letting other people shine. If you've been editing or color grading for long enough, you know well enough that color grading and editing is a very humble position to be in, because you do a lot of work, and ideally the ideal end result is you get no recognition. At least by the average viewer, not by the crew. So when color grading, how do you use invisible colors? Color grading is supposed to enhance the reality that your characters are in. The scene, my character, which is cool enough, happens to be Boston Rob from Survivor. The scene that he's in right here, we were outside. The content we were getting for him was supposed to be very natural. He's in his garage. It's not this big show. It's supposed to be a natural, could look like you took it on your phone. But we used the red, we used all of our lights, and the purpose was to create an enhanced reality. I wanted to take the look of his garage, the look of his house, and all I wanted to do was to manipulate light so that it looked natural, so people weren't questioning it, but it looked really good, so people's eyes were blessed with the image. But I didn't want people to notice the color grade. The greens of the grass, I slightly tweaked them, brought the saturation of them down just a tad. I brought the warmth of the entire image up using a glow node just a little bit. And the lighting we used was matching the light that was already outside, bouncing light. So using invisible colors, the whole point when I say invisible colors is because it's color grading that isn't noticeable. When someone notices your color grade, like I said, it wasn't realistic. It wasn't believable. Trick number 3 actually has 2 parts. Grade before you grade. Part 1. I actually learned this from a YouTube video that I just watched recently. I'll leave the link in the description so you can watch it because it was really good. When you're using your colors in your scene, do a 60-30-10 split. 60% of your image should be one color. If you look at my image, 60% of this is blue, very blue. Then you have 30%. 30% is orange. We have orange, 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 orange. That's changing. Orange. So we have a lot of orange. And then 10% is just little pops of white. So we have white, white. Obviously my screen is white. Headphones, extra points if these colors are contrasting. We'll dive deeper into the contrast of colors in just a minute. Part 2 of trick number 3 is export your LUTs before you film. If you have a LUT that you use or a color grade that you're like kind of using that same process over and over again, export that LUT, download it onto your monitor if you're using a monitor, throw that grade on your footage as you're recording. Ideally, it's not baking onto the footage. Ideally, it's just for visual purposes. That's why I say use a monitor that can display the LUT. So whenever you're going to film, you can already have your color grade in your monitor so that you can see what it would look like if you use that grade that you use so often. Bonus points if you create a couple different grades, couple different LUTs, so that you know, okay, this is going to be more of a somber mood video. Okay, I'm going to throw my overall like blue LUT in there. And then start selling your LUTs. Trick number 4. This is probably the most important aspect to color grading, which you probably already know this, but I'm going to give you a small tip for how you can do it within DaVinci, and that's skin tones. If you can get a skin tone looking proper, that is more believable, and the realism factor is there even more. The reason skin tones are so important is because skin tones, there is a scale. There is a spectrum of skin tones that are constant. It is all falling within that desaturated orange. We just all have different shades. So matching skin tones are important because we already know what the skin tones look like. On DaVinci Resolve, you want to go to, I don't even know what it's called. I call it the color web. I know it's not called the color web, but it looks like a web, so I call it the color web. So whenever I'm in my grade, I want to go over to, what's it called? Color Warper. And you can go and you can select which part of the image you want to start manipulating. I want to manipulate skin tones, and you can go ahead and see down at the bottom of the screen, it shows you exactly where that color is on your web and then what point you can select that is going to manipulate it the most. So what you can do is you can select that point. So that point is selected, and come down here to the hue, and you can change the hue, you can change the saturation. So I'm gonna go back to normal. And the reason I wanna use this color web is because if you notice, as I'm dragging this point, it drags other points with it. So rather than having a hard stop or like some artifacts peeking in when you're using like the skin tone selector and stuff like that, this option actually makes it so that you are dragging all of the colors in a way that will smoothly transfer that color to where you want it. So if you haven't learned this yet, a good way to determine skin tone color and where it should be is if you open up your vector scope, there is a line. This is like the skin tone line, blood line. What you can do is when you select or when you drag over this skin tone, you can kind of see where we are in the arena. So something you could also do is go to the dropper tool over here, select the skin tones, select this highlight area, and then now we only see the portions that are selected, and then you can go to this color warp tool and you can start to warp again here, and we want to be as close as we can to that area. So if we come back, there's our skin tones, and then obviously if you want to saturate it a little bit more, you need to bring it back. Gross. And then maybe if we wanted to desaturate it a little bit, we need to bring it forward. Pretty good. All right. So trick number 5, and this is not going to be our last one. Stay till after this one for a bonus trick. Color contrast. Like I mentioned earlier, whenever I was talking about these lights in here, doing your 60-30-10 rule, look at a color wheel. If the colors are opposite of each other, use those. Bonus points, use complementary contrast colors, but make sure that your story makes sense for both of those psychologically. Like I mentioned earlier, blue is trust, orange is warmth and friendliness. Both of them work for me. Last one, the bonus trick. Color density. I love this one. I actually just learned this recently. Direct your colors, or the colors that are either going to pop or the most saturation, to your subject. For me, most of this image is blue. The brightest orange you're seeing is my hat, me, my subject. Sorry, my subject. Another way you could also do this is by vignetting saturation. Instead of a normal black or white vignette, you just desaturate your vignette. So now you have more of a monochromatic surrounding area and you are leading with saturation. Another way you could use this is going back to DaVinci, going to your curves and going to the luminance versus saturation. Drag the shadow all the way down and the highlights all the way down and bring your midtones back up. And you are desaturating your heavy shadows and your heavy highlights, because usually those may not be the subject of your image, those will just be surrounding areas. So by doing that, you are desaturating some of the outside areas and bringing saturation to your subject. And then obviously, depending on where your subject's falling on this scale from shadows to highlight, you can bring up the saturation where your subject would follow. If y'all have any questions at all on different color grading tactics, you can either click this video where I did a deep dive on how to create a moody film look, or put in the comments, hey, how do you do this? Why do you do this? Hey, do this. This is better. I'll look at it. I'll analyze it. Love y'all, really do. Remember, it only takes one to plan before you ever shoot. Plan your grade before you ever hit record. It only takes one to go film. Go film something. You've been waiting too long. Go film. It only takes one to make a change, and it only takes one to change the world, and that could be you. See you next time.